Hello and welcome everyone to the Cyber Den, right here on Siren Radio with your host, me, Jake the Voice. And today we have a special guest for one of our lovely interviews. Please welcome head honcho of German industrial metal band KMFDM, Sascha Konietzko. Thanks for coming, mate.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Now, Sascha, please tell everyone listening, starting off, of course, bread and butter question. What got you into making music?
Well, that's a good question. I never thought I would be doing anything in music. And then stuff just began to happen. And, all of a sudden things took a turn. And all of a sudden I found myself taking my band to the United States and playing in front of several thousand people each night, opening up for Ministry back in 1989, 1990. And that basically sealed my fate, and there was no turning back. So after the first US tour, I just moved to the United States, to Chicago, and now 36 years later, or 35 years later, we're talking to each other right now, right here. I was doing majorly work in photography until that point, and kind of in the mid-'80s, I started to do some kind of weird live performances, playing with tape loops and feedbacking instruments and vacuum cleaners and all kinds of noise sources, which I guess was just the time to do that, this industrial sort of movement. And look how it ended up, It's kind of funny. Now, 40 years later, KMFDM is still going strong, putting out records, doing touring, and everything that would qualify as being a band or something like that.
So which bands or artists would you consider as an inspiration for KMFDM's signature sound?
Well, on one hand, the inspiration was stuff like SPK from Australia, Einstürzen und Neubauten from Germany. And that was kind of like the stuff I would go see concerts. But then at some point it kind of turned around a bit, and I started to make music that I couldn't find anywhere. So basically, I think the whole KMFDM thing came together when in the office that I was working, someone had left a cassette tape with a bunch of recordings by Slayer and Metallica and whatnot, like sort of hardcore heavy metal bands. And I thought, it would be really cool to have these Marshall kind of guitar riffs and joining them with some sort of, house music type of stuff, fat bass lines and groovy beats and things like that. And that was really the sparking moment for KMFDM's birth, really, to combine all kinds of different genres and create something entirely new. Which, of course, in the beginning was, it went painstakingly slow because there was no money and instruments were very expensive. Synthesizers and things like that. And then came the first generation of affordable samplers, which basically allowed you to record anything and mangle it up and recompose it to your own liking. And so I really saved up a lot of money and bought my first Emax sampler back in 1985, maybe 86, I don't know, and borrowed my brother's Commodore C64 computer, and had a very simple kind of sequencing software running, and that's how I got started. And everything I did, I try to do better and better and better. And with the onset of affordable computer technology, things got much, much easier. So, you didn't have to program every single drum beat anymore. You could just rip off entire loops from popular artists and stuff like that. And it was it was a lot of fun and a steep learning curve, but I'm a stickler when it comes to perfection.
So tell us a bit more about the early days of KMFDM and working on albums in the 80s. How did, things like the composition process go down way back then? What was the general goal with the compositions and the lyrics and, the overall message of a certain song, etc.?
I guess a lot of it was kind of, spontaneous. Oftentimes I recall writing lyrics just in the studio while someone else was laying down some instrumental tracks. And obviously, I mentioned the financial stickiness back in those days. We went into a studio and laid down an entire album in like 1 day or 2 days maximum, and then took the tapes home and with a razor blade and a chalky pen, just cut out all the good bits from the mixes and glued them together. So we would just record until the tape was full, and then call it a day, go home, and have some entertaining drugs, and then just spend the entire night cutting up the stuff that we recorded the day before until it was kind of like presentable. So yeah, that's how it kind of went.
So when do you think it was that the band made its breakthrough into the music scene? Do you think it was after a particular album release, or maybe a certain date or venue when you thought that, KMFDM has kind of cemented itself in industrial metal history and, it's finally kind of like getting its name out there, getting bigger fan base than ever before?
Well, that's the weird thing, that we're being called industrial, which we are not really by any means of definition. But it was most definitely the tour with the Ministry of the United States that put us on the map. And there was that label at the time based out of Chicago, Wax Trax Records, and they were basically the measure all of it industrial in America at the time, and they wanted to sign KMFDM right away, and so I was kind of like hesitant because I had some strange experiences with German record labels. Never really ended up committing myself to contractually to a record label. But Wax Trax seemed different enough, so I did sign with them, and yeah, that was a major stepping stone in the history of KMFDM, because all of a sudden we were so visible just by being kind of identified with Wax Trax, who had like a huge footprint in the sort of music scene in the States. And basically, if you were on Wax Trax, you were what jazz musicians were maybe on Blue Note records. It was just like people would buy Wax Trax records just because it was on Wax Trax. And so KMFDM was found out by hundreds of thousands of people, and we started selling massive amount of records in no time at all. Before in Germany, we sold no records whatsoever. I drove around with a trunk full of vinyl albums, our first album, What You Know Deutschland, and I had maybe sold 5 copies. It's freaking crazy. And then I went to London and I looked in the phone book and I went to every record label, and nobody wanted to talk to me. I was just this, weird punk rock dude from Germany. And months and months after that trip to London, I got a postcard in the mail from someone that resided in Liverpool, I believe. And he said he wanted to sign KMFDM. And I was like, that is so weird. I don't know who you are, and I've never met you or talked to you. And he said, I found a record of yours in a dumpster at Mute Records. I mean, you might not believe this, but it's really true. So, I really like your record, and I want to sign you. So I went back to London, and we met at a Pizza Hut, and he gave me 100 British pounds as an advance, and put out this record. And that's how Wax Trax actually found out about us. And then the next album we worked with Adrian Sherwood, who's a pretty well-known producer and musician guy from the UK, obviously. And it turned out that Ministry had just worked, or maybe we had worked just before Ministry did with him. So somehow our name got kind of tossed around, and the Ministry invited us to the US, and I'm forever grateful. Blah blah blah. So yeah, that's how it went. That's what put us on the map.
So has the composition process for songs and albums differed over the years? Like back then compared to the more recent releases, and how has the gradual improvement in technology helped with this?
You're harkening back to the previous question now. I see. Um, the composition thing was mainly driven by found sounds. So I mentioned the sampler, which is this instrument that you can just record any sound source with and then play with it. So if we had a great loop or a great sounding explosion, or I don't know, a bit of a mambo kind of tune, that would be the inspiring kind of spark, the initial spark. And then, stuff would be layered around. And I'm just talking about, the craziest stuff. I would listen to a dub reggae album maybe and hear this wonderful snare drum explosion, like, and I'm like, oh, okay, God, where's the sampler? I have to record it. And it was really throwing everything and the kitchen sink at the wall and see what sticks. And just recently, I found the one of the first sequencers that I ever used, and it had the floppy disks. And I still have the sound banks for the old Emacs sampler. So all of a sudden, I could listen to the original, to the O-tone, so to speak, of 1986, 87. And check out these tracks that we did like so many years ago.
Funny enough, I actually, when I was doing some research many moons ago, I actually found out about some like instrumental versions of some KMFDM albums, albeit like strictly promo only. Do you know what this is, and has there been any thought about releasing some of these, instrumental versions of certain songs, or even multi-tracks for fans to kind of like rip into and kind of make something themselves, anything like that?
Well, the instrumental versions of things, that used to be a practice that labels do back in the day because they wanted to secure sync placements for movies or television shows. So they would send instrumental versions of an album to all kinds of people that plug sync licenses, and well, some of them just leaked and became quite popular. Um, I don't think an instrumental album is really doing justice to the as opposed to the full album, because if a track is supposed to be instrumental, then it would be mixed very differently than if it has vocals. So I find the instrumental tracks rather boring because obviously they're lacking something. I was thinking at some point not too long ago, why not do instrumental albums only from now on? Because I've said a lot of stuff, and I think maybe I've said it all. Maybe I start to repeat myself, or maybe I'm getting too old to do this altogether, or maybe I should just leave the party when it's the best. I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I remember a particular song by good old Marilyn Manson, kind of, he quite tongue-in-cheek singing about, everything has been said before, nothing to say anymore. But then again, at the same time, it's like, why stop oneself anyway? Because I'm pretty sure, there's a million different ways to say one thing anyway. Not trying to diss, the lyrics of KMFDM or the songwriting process, anything like that, of course, because as it's clear to see, KMFDM has joked about the conceptual continuity, which I was actually going to ask about that. Why is it that why is it that the band sticks with what it knows best? Why 30 plus years of conceptual continuity?
Well, the term conceptual continuity is a term coined initially by Frank Zappa, I believe, or maybe even further back. Maybe it's even a Dadaist kind of thing. But yeah, conceptual continuity means to me, why fuck with it when it works so well? But back to the previous statement about maybe this, maybe that. I just really hate to see old men on stage trying really, really hard to rock out. So, I still have it in me, but some bands I see these days, I'm just like, oh my God. I mean, they should be sitting somewhere having tea and eating crumpets or something, not on a stage.
Yeah, I don't see KMFDM becoming the next like Motley Crue anytime soon. So,
Rolling
there's that.
Stones, yeah, right.
Maybe they can eventually get wheeled off to the old folks' home. Like, come on then, guys, come on, climb in the wheelchair. Let's get some porridge in. But I want to sing some music. Yes, you can sing some music before you nap. Go ahead. So, all right, let's talk about collaborations. Like how it goes down when KMFDM teams up with other artists. Like, there's been collabs with former band members like Raymond Watts of Pig and Tim Skold. Then there's things like, there's people like Buzz McCoy of My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, and of course your future wife, Lucia Cefarelli, etc. So, what was it like working with all these other collaborating old and new artists on certain songs or entire albums or projects like that?
Yeah, I mean, KMFDM, I never saw KMFDM as a band per se. I always saw KMFDM as my project, and because nobody that was ever in KMFDM really wanted to take the reins or take the risk in pushing ahead. So it was me who, worked night shift at the harbor here in Hamburg at the port to scrounge up $400 for a day of studio recordings. And so eventually I was just like, when I say we, it means it encompasses the people that I was working with at the time, but literally it was always a project that I had the final say in. And I found it really interesting to work with a lot of different people that came from different backgrounds and brought something to the table that I maybe wouldn't even think of. So the list of contributors over the years is a long one, definitely. And everybody had their place at the time in time, and we came up all together with some pretty good stuff, pretty good shit, I would say. Yeah, and that's really it. Funnily enough, on the new album, it's just hardcore KMFDM as of now. It's Lucia and Andy Black Sugar, who also, by the way, plays guitar for Blondie, Andy Selway, our drummer from England, and myself, plus our rapping friend MC Ocelot. But there's no per se guest appearances on this latest album, which, by the way, is coming out on February the 2nd, 2024.
Very nice, very nice. I'll be questioning you a bit more about any of the kind of details of the new album soon enough, so stay tuned for that, of course.
I'm sure you will. I'm sure you will.
And if I forget, you can kick me one. Anyway, so I got another question. There's been a lot of remixes of KMFDM songs, like on the singles and EPs, etc. And also, you yourself have remixed plenty of songs for other bands like Rammstein, White Zombie, Megadeth, and more. So, how goes the remixing process?
Metallica.
And yes, those guys too. So again, how goes the remixing process? And is it the same or any different when doing so with other bands and not just KMFDM's own made tunes?
I have to really sort of go full circle on the remix thing because I was always fascinated by African music. I grew up in a household where we played a lot of African music. And eventually, towards the mid to end 60s, like Jamaican music turned from kind of something that wanted to try to be sort of mainstreamish into something really cool that became reggae. And I noticed when I listened to reggae from morning to night that there often was the same kind of soundtrack, but it had different people vocalizing over it, or there would be added instruments or something. So that, I think in Jamaica they call that a dub. So the idea started to form in my head to make different versions of the same song, but not by using the same musical bed, but keeping the same lyrics, the same vocals recordings, but change the music around. And that really became one of these things that I sunk my teeth into. And there's plenty of tracks that have the same vocal recording and same lyric, but are completely different musically. And we put that stuff out, and I don't know if there were all that many bands that did it at the time, or bands, projects, whatever. I said we're not a band, but maybe whatever. So yeah, all of a sudden people ask me, "Oh, you do all these remixes for your own stuff, and why don't you do mine?" And so I did. And then I had a clever management that offered my services around, and all of a sudden some people were paying top dollar for me doing their remixes. And I always did it with a very disrespectful approach to their material. I would just take, I would say, if they ask me like, what do you want? Do you want each and every guitar track, or do you want 15 tracks of drum recording? I'm like, no, just give me the vocal, and I figure it out from there. So I guess people, for the most part, liked what I did with their stuff, and more and more people asked me to do this, and yeah, that's really how it was. And nowadays, there's no money in the music industry, so once in a while I get approached by someone that asks me to do a remix for them, and I just say, well, you can't pay me anyways, so I just base it on whether I like what I hear. And if I like what I hear, then I do the remix, and maybe I do it for free, or maybe I do it for 5,000, or maybe I do it for $10,000. But I don't do it if I don't like it.
And hey, if KMFDM ever need a remixer for any of their songs, I know this great dude who likes to dabble in remixes. What was his name? Jake the something the voice. Trying to remember his
Do
name.
you remixes?
I do actually, yeah. I do like to dabble a little bit here and there with some remixing.
What's your setup?
Whatever the hell's on my PC. I got a pretty basic setup. I actually like composing like dark ambient stuff personally, but I've also done some remixes of certain like songs by like some mates who have done bands and whatnot. Get them kind of pushed out there. I don't know. It just becomes quite a bit of a fun little activity that I've done actually.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always fun to just take something, just manipulate it, twist it around, and make it into something brand new.
Yeah, no, I think some bands, for lack of a better word, some bands do remixes because they're not really happy with the first version that they put out of a song. But I think you can really, explode the space with the remix by just going a completely different route. And what did I do recently? I did a remix for a deceased person, which was actually the first time ever. For Mary from oh God, what is that band? Anyway, let's keep going. It comes back to me.
I want to ask about compilation albums, and KMFDM have pushed out a handful of compilation albums over the years. I just wanted to ask about who calls the shots with those, and when it comes to record labels, are they hands-on with their input, or are they a bit more laissez-faire and kind of let you or any other band member kind of throw their thoughts and suggestions into the mix?
I basically picked the songs, and that's it.
Simple
it was Mary Wilson from the Supremes.
Ah, right.
Oh, now it comes back to me. No. I mean, the best ofs. Obviously, there's one best of album that's called Wurst, like German sausage, and the other one is called Greatest Shit. And then there was one back in the day called Retro. That was actually Retro in 1996. That was actually an attempt of the label that took over Wax Trax Records after the death of the owner of Wax Trax, It was an attempt to, I don't know, garner even more attention. And well, it landed us with like something like 250,000 copies sold. And that was that, you know. I mean, back in the day, it was like you could make so much money and still be totally under the radar. I mean, just the mid 90s were crazy, you know. Like MTV was like showing videos of KMFDM stuff on Beavis and Butthead, which was one of the really kind of shit shows. And, you know, I think the hardest decisions I've ever had to make were the ones that carried the biggest price tag, too. You know, I was always really protective of myself and, you know, wanted to maintain my own control over the rights and material. And, you know, instead of having $1 million and then be forgotten like tomorrow, those were hard times. Like to say, nah, I'm not going to do it. And they would be like, but there's all this money. And I'm like, I don't care about money. I care about integrity and I care about controlling my own fucking personality.
Well said, and harkens back to the particular song "Sucks" with the line about not selling to a major label for a couple of bucks.
Ah, right. And then I did. And then I did, and it was just like, yep, told you so. Don't do it.
Got to pay the phone bill somehow, I suppose.
You just got to maintain a huge portion of humor and self-deprecation, and going to be all right.
All right, then. So, next question. This one I'm quite excited to ask about. Now, KMFDM have composed for, you know, a few video games. I mean, of course, you know, KMFDM has had some of the songs put in other video games, like, you know, just like some lifted from the albums, etc. But you guys have indeed composed for a few video games like the cancelled 1999 shooter Prey and also Spider-Man 2 back in 2004. So how did the creative process go down for making the music for these sorts of games?
Kind of like everything else. It's just a rather open and not quite respectful approach. Just say, you know, I mean, I'm not a gamer person myself. I was kind of born too early to be interested in arcade kind of games, and at the time I was just like too busy to get into, you know, modern day gaming. I did have a period though where I played Doom for about a month, and all the while sitting in a studio that cost $2,000 a day. I'm just going, I don't want to record. I want to play Doom and get high. You know, fucking brat. But yeah, you know, what can I say? You just go like, all right, so it's a dark game. They tell you there's these and those characters, and they are in such and such a relationship to each other. That like these guys are like enemies. This guy is the father of the warrior. So you come up with something soothing that sounds like a father caring about the warrior son, and come up with something fiery that goes like the foe is meeting in the arena, and so forth. It's just not. It's kind of something that comes quite naturally. I don't really have to think very much about it. It's you just do it. It's kind of like trying to explain a painting doesn't really work, and trying to explain where composition of musical stuff comes from is very hard too, because it is either you do it or you don't. And I'm not saying, you know, it's great if you can. I'm just saying some people can and some people just cannot. But some people that cannot compose, for instance, are like super great musicians or vocalists. I've seen everything, you know. Everything goes. Really, everything goes.
You know, speaking of the 1999 Prey game, since the game was of course never released, you know, that original version, it eventually got passed on to a different developer in 2006, then it got released in 2006, etc. But anyway, the OST was never released for the 1999 version of Prey, and its original developer, called Apogee Apogee Software, they owned a company called 3D Realms who said, hey, you know, we're making this game, let's get KMFDM to do the music. But anyway, so the chappie who owns Apogee and used to own 3D Realms, I've actually shot a few messages with him back and forth about this. And he basically said, like, you know, he would love to see how, like, a piece of this kind of first-person shooter history get released. So do you think it could actually potentially happen to have this unreleased soundtrack from over 2 decades ago? Do you think there is a possibility to maybe get this released?
I don't think so, because the hard drive that the original tracks or the original Pro Tools sessions were on caught fire, and it is quite possible. I would say it's quite possible that I have a copy of the files somewhere, but I don't have a computer system that can open the files anymore. Even if I were to find them on an old hard drive, I would have to find someone that has a computer that runs an OS from 1999, probably Apple Mac 5.22 and Pro Tools, God knows, 261 or something like that. You know, that's the bane of music storage. Things have developed so quickly. Up until the 90s, it was okay to have a tape machine and keep the tapes upright in a kind of cool and temperature controlled, not too humid environment, and the tapes would be good for decades. And nowadays, you know, the early things like zip drives and these 3.5-inch soft floppy disks, and everything is just rotting away. The other day, I just pulled out some burnable CDs from 1999, exactly around the time from Prey, and the felt marker pen had eaten through the top layer of the audio material, and the stuff was rendered completely useless. That said, floppy disks, like the hard old little ones, they still work amazingly well. That was something that was built for the future. But you know, all our storage media will go out at some point, and especially the stuff from the late 90s when things escalated at such a quick pace. iOmega zip drives, like I said. For instance, 1997, we had mixed the Emoji album, which sometimes is referred to as Symbols, and played the whole thing from the studio tape machines onto a iOmega zip drive. Took it home and found out the drive had been corrupted by a magnet from a headphone on the passenger seat in my car. So we had to remix the entire album. It's like, imagine that. So anyways, it turned out better than it was before.
Of course, KMFDM has been performing live for pretty much decades, so how does the band like to mix things up and kind of make their live staples stand out and differ when compared to the album versions?
They're mixed very differently. The album versions obviously are to address the senses in such a way that you know, you're hearing something that's very hi-fi, very well balanced, and the live versions are much more dominated by drum and bass. So it just really flies around your ears like, you know, wet pancakes. And you know, there's always the problem live is always to get the vocals across, because obviously microphones have the tendency to feedback. So everything wants to be louder than everything else. And so, yeah, we're mixing it different. There's a much more mid-frequency kind of pushing through over the subs. And, you know, probably at the expense of some high end. So, yeah, in the end, the difference between an album and a live performance is you get pummeled. You get absolutely pummeled. And if you're standing in the front row, it happens that people have passed out just because the low frequencies just, you know, just knocked them out. Sorry for that. I'm sorry.
I'm sure it wouldn't be a KMFDM concert if someone wasn't literally blown away by the music. Think of it like that.
Well, we take out indemnity insurance in the case that happens.
Good call, good call. I just want to say as a side note, I gotta say, like, probably the release We Are, of course, KMFDM live release. I gotta say, that's probably one of my personal favorite live albums, just in general. I think that perfectly encapsulates how to tackle a live album, make it sound, like its very own entity compared to the album stuff, while being just as good as the album releases as well. So, brownie points there.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. We Are. I haven't heard that in a while. That's funny too. The album that I delivered last week, I'm probably not going to listen to that whole album again for a couple of years, because I just over-listened to it. Obviously, I will listen to some of the tracks as I'm preparing them for the upcoming tour, but it's really hard to listen to your own stuff when it's so fresh. And I forgot what I just wanted to say. Live albums. Gone. Comes back. It's, a sign of age. Thoughts cross your mind and then disappear into the void. And 5 minutes later, you remember everything. Oh, yeah.
Happens to be at my age anyway. That's what happens when I dissociate. Then I just like a day later, then I realise, hey, they're mocking me. How dare you? Oh wait, no, I'm not with that person. I'm standing in the middle of the street. Darn it!
What? You don't have to talk loud. You're perfectly fine. What?
Okay. So, albums. The big question, of course. The new album in the works, Let Go. So, what can fans expect from it? And do you have any ideas about certain tracks that you're hoping to maybe release for a music video or single or anything like that?
That's what I wanted to say, what escaped me before. I wanted to say that although I released Let Go to the label for production a week ago, today I started working on a new KMFDM album. Let Go. It's gonna come out on February the 2nd, 24. It's got 11 tracks on it. It's a total trip through a lot of musical genres, and kind of the last time I heard it, I was a little breathless after it finished. I was kind of like, ooh. That was some sort of a ride. Yeah, I think, but it's definitely going to be a single release, like nothing physical, just a digital release of the title track, Let Go. There might be a second single, depending on the lay of the land. There's not going to be any video. We're just circulating video footage from the last tour in May of this year, where, amongst other places, we played at the Sick New World Fest in Las Vegas with 85,000 attendees. That in by itself was quite a trip. And music videos. There was a time for that art form way back in the day, but again, it's kind of like, what do you want? Do you want a clip? Then 20 seconds is great. Nobody has the time to watch something for 5 minutes or so anymore, anyways. And and then we're gonna hit the road. We're gonna play all our major markets in the United States. And I just earlier today had a consulting conversation with my European booking agent, and she said that we should really try to get something together for 2025. She's always planning ahead. I told her, look, it's a lost cause. We've been touring. I mean, Lucia and I moved back from the United States. After almost 19 years over there, moved back in late 2007. Then in 2008, our daughter was born. In 2009, 10, 11, 12, 14, 15, 17, we toured extensively at the loss of, at a financial loss sometimes, just to maintain our sort of, presence here in Europe. But now with Brexit and really kind of shitty restrictions, possible, delays of coming into the UK, and there's no way to tour anymore. It doesn't make sense. I mean, the UK is our second biggest market in the world. And, if we book a show in London and then they don't let us in for 2 days because they have too many trucks lined up at the friggin' tunnel, then we're missing a show. And you need a carnet and this and that. And blah. It's just so much red tape. And the price of gasoline is at its very highest ever. So renting a tour bus is not really, a sort of easy option. And I'm certainly not going to drive myself around in a split van. So fuck that. No touring in Europe for the time being until further notice. And unfortunately, no touring in England, which I really, really super enjoy. And we have so many fans over there. They're not even fans, they're friends. That we hang out before and after shows and go places and do things and visit their houses and pet their pets and stuff like that.
With Let Go, will you be tapping into, what kind of themes will you be tapping into? Will you be tapping into some more political rage that KMFDM is known for? Maybe tapping into other kind of light-hearted stuff or comforting stuff?
I think, I don't know, there's a little bit of that, and there's quite a few other things. There's an ode to child molestation from 1782 by Wolfgang von Goethe, which obviously I'm not super serious about, but that's what it is. There is, some very kind of fun and very punky and very orchestral laden, and some, even a little dub found its way onto the album. And there's some rappy bits that turn all of a sudden into almost Senegalese disco music. So be very afraid. This might just blow your mind.
Are there any other plans for future releases, or perhaps any other kind of ideas that you'd love to do in the future for KMFDM?
I think that at some point, just because it felt so damn good to do the first one, that I might actually attempt a second KMFDM in dub album. It's actually probably the one release by KMFDM that I've listened to 100 times more than to any other release by KMFDM ever. It's, on a nice springy or summery evening, sitting outside by the barbecue. What goes on? KMFDM and dub. It's just, I don't know. It's this type of music is my passion. And, someone just the other day tried to lay some guilt on me and saying I was appropriating fucking, Jamaican culture or something. That's all fucking bullshit. I'm not trying to appropriate anyone's fucking culture. I have no prejudices. I have no problem with what people do when they're on their own. And, last thing that I do is appropriate some culture. It's super heinous kind of stupid stuff. Anyways, yeah, that's something I might do. But in the meantime, I have other fish to fry because I know that Lucia is going to do another solo project. And my daughter wants to do her first record, so I'll be probably pretty busy in 2024 besides going on the road.
Hey, more family projects. That sounds great. And I mean, to be honest, maybe I might just end up popping a message Lucia's way and saying, hey, maybe you might be interested in an interview. I guess, if she's ever listening to this interview when it's released on YouTube, we'll see. But the invite's out there.
You have a Zappa-ass quality to some of the things that you say.
Yeah, that comes with that just comes with part of the job. Sometimes you got to kind of let yourself just joke around a bit, and hopefully you will be forgiven for whatever is said. That's my kind of approach when.
But seriously, you're better than most. I mean, my brother and I, we recorded Top of the Pops and all kinds of British radio programs on reel-to-reel back in the day, and 67, 68, 69, 70, 71. And you have that quality of the radio announcers back then. That's very special. I mean, not many people know how to do that, and maybe they just don't have the right voices, or they don't have the right sense of humor, or maybe they're just stupid. But you got it going on, man. You do.
Thanks for the pep talk. Really appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, I try and get voice out there with, like, narrations and voice acting work and stuff like that. Wherever possible, wherever I get the chance to, get my pipes and just shout or say stupid stuff on a microphone and get money that way, hopefully. But, but again, I appreciate it. I mean, hopefully, it's funny you should mention that, actually. I got turned down 2 radio job interviews, and I realized I hate radio. Why am I doing this? I just go back to community radio at Siren because I love doing that, because the freedom to just muck around and, be myself rather than impersonate some kind of northerner. We're going to play some song from the top 40 again, with my brother and sister and Lester. Screw that. No, I want to play cool music. I want to play KMFDM and other bands, and I want to just act like a complete arse on the airwaves and do that at home when I get to voice acting, but in different voices that time, so.
I don't know, but what you just impersonated, that's the majority of people I do speak to when I speak to English radio MCs or DJs, whatever.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Let's play that old song again, all right?
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to get put through that, to be honest, but... Let's talk about favourites. So which would you say are probably some of your favourite KMFDM songs, remixes, albums, etc.? And yes, I know it's not going to be Juke-Joint Jezebel. I know that you don't like that song very well.
Well, as an album, like I said just a few minutes ago, it's definitely in dub. That's my most listened to KMFDM album. For live performances, there are quite a few tracks, and those would be. I really love Hyena. I do love Tohu Vabohu. I love DIY. I do love Son of a Gun, World War III, Light. I don't know what it is for the other vocalists. I'm just talking about myself here. And that's pretty much done. I think my all-time favorite to do is probably Hyena. Oh, and Paradise. I love Paradise.
Outside of composing and performing, going live, etc., how do you personally like to relax in your spare time?
Oh, how do I relax? I relax pretty much around this time of the day, around getting close to 8. I enjoy a meal with my family, and sometimes I cook, sometimes Lucia cooks, sometimes our daughter cooks, and that's the hour sort of the day where we just congregate and talk and kick back, enjoy a good little glass of wine or a cocktail or something. And after that, I don't know, in the past few years, I've been an early riser. So I used to be working all through the night and then sleep all day, which I don't like. So after a nice meal, I maybe watch a little bit of a movie or read a few pages, and then I go to bed and be up in the morning at about 5-6 a.m. and go to work, feeling refreshed and full of spunk most of the time.
Sascha, let me just say, it's been an absolute blast getting you on board. Thank you so much for this interview.
It was very much entertaining and very fun talking to you, Jake, and let's do it again when the time comes.
I shall indeed, and hey, if KMFDM ever needs a shouty British person to sample for an album, I'm here. I need money to pay for rent. Anyway,
we have meat here in the building.
Okay, so in all seriousness, is there anything else that you'd like to say to all of the KMFDM fans out there?
I love you all. You know who you are.
And I'd personally like to thank all of my wonderful listeners out there for tuning into another great interview or another wunderbar interview right here on the Cyberden. So, Sascha, let me just say good luck with all future music endeavors and good luck with killing motherfucking Depeche Mode.
Thank you very much, Jake. All the best to you. Hey, this is Kap'n K from KMFDM speaking. Keep ripping the system and listening to Jake the Voice on the Cyberden.